Prologue. The night before my husband's 35th birthday, he stood in our dining room with one hand around my waist and told 14 people that I was the only woman he had ever truly loved. His mother smiled at him over the rim of her wineglass. His father looked down at his plate. 3 of his closest friends raised their glasses and laughed like they were in on a private joke. And his sister, Nora, made a sound under her breath that I had spent years mistaking for contempt. I smiled for the camera. That was the part Andrew never understood later. He thought I smiled because I believed him. He thought I had no idea that less than 20 miles away, another woman was waiting for him in an apartment he paid for. He thought I knew nothing about the 6-month-old baby boy who had his eyes, his last name on a private medical form, and a nursery filled with furniture purchased from our joint account. But by the time Andrew lifted his glass and thanked me for being the perfect wife, I already knew everything. I knew his parents had met the baby. I knew his friends had covered for him. I knew he had been sleeping with a woman named Lola for 3 years of our 5-year marriage. And I knew that while he had spent his career teaching strangers how to hide money, frame arguments, and survive ugly divorces, he had made one fatal mistake in his own marriage. He had underestimated me. The phone I had found in our garage was back on the shelf where he had left it. The screenshots were already stored in 3 separate places. A divorce attorney had copies of the messages. His most hated colleague knew what he had done, and the camera on my phone was recording every word of his birthday speech. "To my beautiful wife," Andrew said, turning toward me with the warm, practiced smile that had once made me feel chosen. "None of this would mean anything without you." My throat tightened so sharply that for a second I thought I might stop breathing. 5 years of marriage rose inside me at once. Our wedding, the first house we bought, the nights I stayed awake listening to him talk about difficult cases, the baby names we had whispered in bed before he began telling me we should wait, the dinners I cooked, the shirts I ironed before important hearings, the version of my life I had believed was real. Then I looked at his mother, who knew about the other woman and still sat at my table eating food I had prepared. I looked at David, who had apparently lent Andrew his name whenever my husband needed an alibi. And I looked at Nora, whose face was pale with shame. I lifted my glass. "Happy birthday, Andrew," I said. My voice did not shake. 1 week later, he would be served divorce papers in the middle of his office, in front of the partners whose approval he had spent years chasing. But first, I had to survive the party. And before that, I had to understand how an ordinary Friday afternoon had divided my life into 2 parts. The woman I had been before I opened a hidden phone, and the woman who walked away after reading what was inside. Chapter 1. It was Friday afternoon, and I was thinking about rosemary potatoes when my marriage ended. Not legally, not publicly, Andrew was still my husband. His wedding ring was still on his hand, and mine was still on my finger. But the marriage, I believed, I had was gone before I even understood what I was looking at. My coworkers had let me leave early because everyone knew I was preparing for Andrew's birthday weekend. I worked as a senior marketing analyst for a healthcare technology company in downtown Chicago, and the last 2 weeks had been brutal. We had just finished a major quarterly presentation, and for once, no one needed me after 3 on a Friday. "Go," my manager had said, waving me toward the elevator. "Bake your husband something unreasonable." I laughed and told her that was exactly the plan. Andrew had originally agreed to a restaurant dinner. I had found a private room, talked to the manager, and started working on a guest list. Then, 3 weeks before his birthday, he changed his mind. He said he was exhausted. He said work had become unbearable. He said he did not want strangers hovering around us while his family and friends tried to relax. "Home feels better," he told me one night, loosening his tie as he walked into the kitchen. "Nothing big, just the people we actually care about." I should have noticed the calculation in that request. A party at home gave him control. It also gave him a reason to disappear before and after without having to explain reservations or schedules. But at the time, I thought he was vulnerable. Andrew was a divorce attorney at one of the largest family law firms in the city. He had been working toward partnership for years, and until recently, everyone had treated it as inevitable. Then another attorney at the firm, Vanessa Cole, began getting the high-profile clients he believed belonged to him. He hated her. At least, that was what he said. According to Andrew, Vanessa was cold, aggressive, ambitious, and willing to use anything to win. I had listened to him complain about her for months. I had rubbed his shoulders while he described meetings she had dominated. I had reassured him that one difficult colleague could not erase years of excellent work. I had been loyal to him, even in rooms where he was not present. That Friday, I stopped at 2 grocery stores and a bakery. By the time I got home, the trunk was packed with wine, vegetables, meat, flowers, sparkling water, and ingredients for the chocolate espresso cake Andrew loved. Our house in Oak Park was not enormous, but it was beautiful in the way homes become beautiful after years of attention. I had chosen the warm white paint in the living room. I had hunted for the walnut dining table for 6 months. I knew which floorboard complained near the stairs and which kitchen window caught the best light in the morning. I used to think the house proved we had built something solid. That afternoon, it felt especially alive. Sunlight crossed the hardwood floors. A bowl of lemons sat on the counter. Andrew's jacket from the night before hung over the back of a chair because he never remembered to put it away. I changed into leggings and an old college sweatshirt, tied my hair back, and began moving through my list. Clean the guest bathroom. Marinate the chicken. Chill the wine. Pick up the folding chairs from the garage. That last task took me outside. The garage smelled like dust, cold concrete, and motor oil. Andrew's car was gone, of course. Mine was in the driveway because I had been unloading groceries. Along one wall stood shelves crowded with paint cans, tools, sports equipment, and boxes we had not opened since moving in. The chairs were stacked behind a set of winter tires. As I pulled them forward, a small black object slipped from the shelf above and struck the concrete. It was a phone. At first, I assumed one of Andrew's friends had left it after watching a game in the garage. David, Mark, and Chris were always losing chargers, sunglasses, and keys when they came over. The phone had no case, no visible damage, and no notifications on the lock screen. I pressed the side button. A pattern grid appeared. For a few seconds, I simply stared at it. Then I remembered a ridiculous story Andrew had told me years earlier. He and several friends from his college fraternity had created the same unlock pattern as a symbol of loyalty. Andrew had refused to use it on his regular phone because he called it childish. "Some of us grew up," he had said, laughing as David traced the pattern across his screen. I had watched them do it more than once. I was good at remembering patterns. It was part of my job. I noticed sequences, inconsistencies, repeated behavior. Andrew used to say I could find a lie hidden in a spreadsheet from across the room. My hand felt strangely heavy as I drew the fraternity symbol on the screen. The phone unlocked. For one hopeful second, I expected to see David's name, a fantasy football app, or dozens of stupid group messages. Instead, the wallpaper was a photograph of Andrew holding a baby. My husband sat in a gray armchair I had never seen before. His shirt was open at the collar, and a tiny infant slept against his chest. Andrew's face was turned toward the child with an expression so soft and unguarded that it hurt to look at him. I knew that expression. I had imagined seeing it one day when he held our baby. The garage seemed to tilt. I gripped the shelf with one hand, but the metal edge dug into my palm and still did not feel real. My mind tried to protect me by inventing explanations. A client's child. A relative I had not met. A friend's baby. Then a message appeared at the top of the screen. "Lola, he finally fell asleep. We miss you. Come home soon." Come home. The words blurred, sharpened, and blurred again. I opened the conversation. There are moments when the body understands a disaster before the mind can name it. My heart began pounding so hard that I heard it in my ears. My mouth went dry. My fingers turned cold. I was standing in my own garage on an ordinary Friday afternoon, yet I felt as though I had been dropped into deep water with no idea which direction led to the surface. The messages went back years. Pictures of Andrew and Lola in restaurants. Pictures from a beach trip he had told me was a legal conference. Pictures of the pregnancy test. Ultrasound images. A photograph of Andrew assembling a crib. A message from Lola asking, when he would finally leave me. A reply from my husband telling her to be patient because the partnership decision had to come first. He wrote that a divorce at the wrong moment could damage his image at the firm. He wrote that I was useful to his career. Useful. I lowered myself onto an overturned bucket because my knees would no longer hold me. The phone shook in my hand. Andrew had spent the last 18 months telling me we should wait to start a family. He said partnership required complete focus. He said he wanted to be emotionally present when we became parents. He said he loved me too much to give me only half of himself. All that time, he had been giving his other family everything he asked me to wait for. The baby in the photographs was 6 months old. A son. His name was Caleb. I pressed my fist against my mouth and made a sound I had never heard from myself before. It was not a scream. It was smaller and worse, the sound of something living being crushed. I wanted to throw the phone across the garage. I wanted to call Andrew and demand that he come home. I wanted to drive to the address in the messages and see the woman who had been living inside the shadows of my marriage. Instead, I sat perfectly still. Because beneath the panic, another thought had begun to form. Andrew was not only a liar. He was a divorce attorney. And if I confronted him before I knew everything, I would be entering a fight he had spent his entire career learning how to win. Chapter 2. The first rule of shock is that time becomes unreliable. I may have sat in the garage for 10 minutes. It may have been 40. Sunlight shifted across the concrete, but I could not feel the temperature anymore. Eventually, training took over. At work, when I found a number that looked impossible, I did not react to it. I verified it. I traced the source. I made copies. I asked what else the anomaly might be connected to. So I treated my husband's second family like a corrupted data set. I opened every message thread. I started with Lola. She was 29 with long dark hair and a wide, easy smile. In photographs, she wore soft sweaters, jeans, and almost no makeup. Andrew called her his piece. She called him Andy, a nickname I had never used and suddenly hated. Their earliest messages were from 3 years before, when Andrew and I had been married for 2 years. There was no drunken accident, no single night, no confused beginning. He had pursued her. He had sent flowers. He had booked hotel rooms. He had told her my marriage was cold and strategic. He said I cared more about our image than about him. He described me as brilliant, controlled, and exhausting. Then, in other conversations, he praised me for exactly the same qualities. To his friends, I was the impressive wife who made him look successful. To his parents, I was stable, educated, and socially appropriate. To Lola, I was a distant career woman who did not understand his needs. In our own home, he called me warm, generous, and the safest place in his life. I began to understand that Andrew did not have one hidden life. He had created a different version of himself for every audience, and each version required a different version of me. The messages with his friends were worse than the affair, because they destroyed my last hope that his betrayal had existed in isolation. David knew. Mark knew. Chris knew. They joked about schedules. They warned Andrew when I mentioned surprise plans. They covered for him when he spent nights with Lola. One message from David read, "Tell the wife you're with M.E. M.E.G.A.N.'s 8T her sisters, S.O.S.H.E. won't know." My stomach twisted. Megan was David's wife. She had sat in my kitchen, cried about fertility treatments, and told me I was lucky to have a husband as devoted as Andrew. Did she know too? I could not tell. The men referred to Lola as the fun house and our home as headquarters. They congratulated Andrew when Caleb was born. Chris sent a bottle of bourbon. Mark wrote, 2 families and still on track for partner. Absolute legend. I stared at that sentence until the words lost meaning. A legend. That was what they called a man who kissed his wife goodnight and drove across the city to hold his newborn son. Then I found the thread with Andrew's parents. I almost did not open it. Susan and Richard Bennett had always treated me with formal kindness. They remembered my birthday. They brought wine to dinner. Susan complimented my cooking and told people I was the daughter she had gained through marriage. I had believed her. The messages, showed photographs of them holding Caleb. There was Susan in a pale blue sweater, smiling down at the baby. There was Richard standing beside Lola's sofa, with one hand on Andrew's shoulder. There were discussions about what Caleb should call them when he was older. There were messages about gifts, pediatric appointments, and a christening that Andrew had attended while telling me he was in Milwaukee for a case. Susan wrote that she hated the secrecy, but could not abandon her only grandson. Richard wrote that Andrew needed to protect his career and avoid a scandal. Neither of them said he should stop betraying me. They debated when he should leave me, as if they were discussing the timing of a home renovation. One message from Susan said, "Olivia is a wonderful wife, but she has had 5 years to give you a child. Lola gave us Caleb. We have to think about what is best for the family." I had to put the phone down. My name is Olivia Bennett. At that moment, it looked foreign on the screen. 5 years to give you a child. As though I had withheld one. As though Andrew had not been the person asking me to wait. A hot wave of humiliation moved through me. I remembered every time Susan had asked gently whether we were thinking about children. I remembered defending Andrew, explaining that his career was at a critical stage and that we had decided together not to rush. She had known I was repeating his lie. She had watched me protect him while he brought her photographs of another woman's baby. I pressed both palms against my face and tried to breathe. The grief was no longer only about losing my husband. It was the collapse of an entire community. Every dinner, every holiday, every group photograph became contaminated. I could not tell which memories had been real and which had taken place while everyone around me carried a secret. Then I opened the thread with Nora. Andrew's younger sister had never been easy with me. She was direct, private, and often silent at family gatherings. I had spent years assuming she found me too polished or too ambitious. When she sighed during conversations or left dinner early, I thought she disliked me. Her messages told a different story. "You are disgusting," she wrote to Andrew after Caleb's birth. "Tell Olivia." He replied that it was complicated. Nora wrote, "No, it is cruel. Complicated is a custody schedule. This is you letting your wife live inside a lie because she is convenient." Andrew told her to stay out of his marriage. She answered, "You brought all of us into it when you made us meet your child, and then sit across from Olivia at Christmas." In another message, she threatened to tell me herself. Andrew responded that if she did, he would make sure their parents blamed her for destroying the family and losing access to Caleb. Nora's husband, Paul, appeared in several messages too. He supported her. He urged Andrew to confess before I discovered everything in a more painful way. They were the only ones. The sister I thought disliked me had been the only person in his family arguing that I deserved the truth. I felt something inside me crack again, but this time the pain carried a strange tenderness. I had judged Nora because I did not understand the battle taking place behind her silence. I checked the time. Andrew would be home in less than 2 hours. Panic rose again, but now it had direction. I needed copies. I photographed the most important conversations with my own phone. Then I used the hidden phone to forward screenshots to a new email account I created on the spot. I saved the images to cloud storage. I recorded a slow video scrolling through the message history so the dates and contact names were visible. I found bank notifications too. Rent payments, furniture purchases, medical bills, transfers to Lola, a monthly amount labeled household. I sent those as well. When I had copied everything I could, I wiped my fingerprints from the screen with the hem of my sweatshirt and returned the phone to the exact position where I had found it. Then I carried the folding chairs into the house. The absurdity of that nearly broke me. I had just discovered that my husband had a second family, and I was still setting up chairs for his birthday party. In the kitchen, the groceries waited where I had left them. The chicken still needed to be marinated. The cake ingredients were lined up on the counter. A handwritten list in my own careful script said, "Make Andrew feel celebrated." I stood over the sink and let myself cry for exactly 3 minutes. Not because 3 minutes was enough. Because it was all I could afford before he came home. I washed my face with cold water, tied my hair back again, and began chopping rosemary. I had spent 5 years being Andrew's wife. For one more weekend, I would play the role perfectly. This time, however, I would be watching him too. Chapter 3. Andrew came home at 6:23. I remember the exact time because I was watching the clock above the stove, trying to understand how the man walking toward our front door could be the same man from the messages. He entered as he always did, calling my name before he had fully removed his coat. "Liv, something smells incredible." His voice moved through the house with familiar ease. For years, that voice had meant home to me. Now it felt like an actor delivering a line from a script I had finally been allowed to read. I stood at the kitchen island with a knife in my hand and forced myself to turn. Andrew was tall, handsome, and perfectly composed even after a long day. His dark hair was slightly disordered from the wind. His tie was loose. He carried the expensive leather briefcase I had given him when he made senior associate. I had loved the way he looked in our doorway. That evening, I noticed details I had never questioned before. The faint scent of a cologne I had not bought. A tiny pale mark on the shoulder of his navy coat, as if someone had rested a powdered cheek there. The speed with which he placed his work phone face down on the counter. He crossed the kitchen and kissed me. My entire body wanted to pull away. I did not. His lips touched mine, warm and casual. My husband kissed me as though he had not spent the afternoon exchanging messages with the mother of his child. "You left early," he said. "We finished the presentation." "Good, you worked too hard." The concern in his voice was so convincing that nausea rolled through me. He opened the refrigerator, took out sparkling water, and began complaining about Vanessa. "She hijacked the partnership meeting again," he said. "You should have heard her. She acts like she's the only person in the building who understands strategy." I kept slicing vegetables. "Maybe she is good at her job." He looked at me, surprised. Normally, I supported him without hesitation. I would have asked what happened, helped him analyze the politics, and reminded him of his strengths. "She's good at making noise," he said. "That's not the same thing." I thought about the hidden phone in the garage. I thought about the years of evidence I had copied. And then, a simple fact appeared in my mind with startling clarity. Vanessa Cole was a divorce attorney. She worked beside Andrew every day. She knew his habits, his reputation, his weaknesses, and the culture of his firm. More importantly, he underestimated her because he disliked her. I set the knife down. "You're right," I said softly. "It isn't the same thing." Andrew relaxed, interpreting my answer as agreement. He changed clothes while I finished dinner. When he came back, he wore jeans and the gray sweater I had bought him the previous Christmas. I wondered whether he had ever worn it at Lola's apartment. The thought struck with such force that I had to grip the serving spoon. We ate at the kitchen table. Andrew praised the food. He told me about a difficult client. He asked whether I had remembered to buy his father's preferred whiskey. He discussed the birthday party as though we were partners planning a shared celebration. I studied him across the table. How could someone lie this comfortably? I had always imagined deception required effort. I thought a liar would avoid eye contact, over-explain, become defensive, or forget details. Andrew did none of that. He smiled. He reached across the table to touch my wrist. He asked whether I was tired. The truth was not competing with his version of reality. His version had replaced it. After dinner, he carried his plate to the sink and kissed the top of my head. "I need to check something in the garage," he said. My pulse jumped. I kept my attention on the dishes. "Okay." He was gone for 4 minutes. When he returned, he had his coat in one hand and his car keys in the other. "David's having a problem," he said. "I need to run over there." The lie came so quickly that I almost admired its efficiency. "What kind of problem?" "Car trouble, nothing serious. He just wants me to take a look." Andrew knew less about cars than I did. Once, he had called roadside assistance because he could not figure out how to release a frozen parking brake. On a Friday night. He smiled and leaned against the counter. "You know, David, everything is an emergency. I won't be long." I wanted to say, "Give Caleb a kiss for me." Instead, I nodded. "Drive safely." He came back to kiss me again. I turned at the last second so his lips brushed my cheek. If he noticed, he did not show it. The front door closed. I stood still until I heard his car pull away. Then I went to the window and watched the taillights disappear down the street. The house became silent. For the first time since finding the phone, I was alone in a place that no longer felt like mine. I picked up my regular phone and searched for Vanessa Cole. Her professional profile appeared immediately. She was 41, a partner-track attorney at Bennett, Shaw and Pierce. Her photograph showed a woman with sharp eyes, dark blonde hair, and the kind of expression Andrew described as arrogant. Now it looked like competence. Her office number went to voicemail. I found a professional contact number connected to a bar association profile and called it. She answered on the fourth ring. "This is Vanessa." "Miss Cole, my name is Olivia Bennett." There was a pause. "Andrew's wife." "Yes." Her tone changed immediately, becoming guarded. "Is everything all right?" No one had asked me that since my life ended. I nearly laughed. "I need to speak with you privately, tonight." "I'm afraid that isn't appropriate, if this is about Andrew's work." "It isn't. I want to hire you to represent me in a divorce." Silence. When Vanessa spoke again, every word was precise. "You want to divorce Andrew? He has another family." I heard her inhale. "What do you mean by another family?" "A woman, a 6-month-old son, an apartment he pays for, 3 years of messages. His parents and friends know." The silence that followed was different, not disbelief, calculation. "Do you have evidence?" she asked. "Yes." "Do not confront him. Do not tell him you called me. And do not move money or leave the house tonight." My knees weakened with relief. Until that moment, I had been carrying the secret alone. Hearing another person respond with practical certainty made the ground feel slightly more stable. "Can you represent me?" "No," she said. "I work with him. It would be a conflict, and I will not risk compromising your case. But I know someone who can. She's very good, and she is not afraid of Andrew." "Can she meet tonight?" "Give me 10 minutes." She called back in 7. "There is a coffee shop on Madison that stays open late," she said. "Be there at 9. Her name is Rachel Sutton. I'll come too, but only to make the introduction and explain the professional context. Bring everything you copied." "Thank you." "Olivia," she said before I could hang up, "whatever Andrew has told you about me, I am sorry you are going through this." My eyes filled. The woman my husband claimed to hate had shown me more humanity in 5 minutes than his family had shown me in 3 years. I changed clothes, put my laptop and phone into a tote bag, and left the house. On the way to the coffee shop, Andrew texted me. "David S. car is a disaster. Wait up." I stared at the message at a red light. Then I took a screenshot. Chapter 4. Vanessa was already at the coffee shop when I arrived. She sat in a back corner wearing dark trousers, a cream blouse, and no coat. She looked exactly like the woman in her professional photograph, except more tired. Across from her sat Rachel Sutton, a compact woman with black curls, tortoiseshell glasses, and a legal pad open in front of her. Neither woman tried to hug me. I was grateful. At that point, kindness felt dangerous. One gentle touch might have shattered the discipline holding me upright. Vanessa stood and introduced us. "Rachel is one of the best matrimonial attorneys I know," she said. "She has no professional relationship with Andrew or our firm." Rachel shook my hand. "Sit down, Olivia. Start at the beginning." I did. I told them about the garage, the fraternity pattern, the baby, Lola, the messages, and the money. I spoke calmly, as though I were presenting findings in a conference room. When I reached the messages from Andrew's parents, my voice tightened, but I kept going. I had no intention of letting their cruelty stop me. Rachel watched me carefully, but did not interrupt. Vanessa's expression hardened as she read the screenshots over my shoulder. "You do not have to prove your strength to us," Rachel said. "I am not proving anything," I replied. "I am documenting it." Neither woman offered me pity. I was grateful. What I needed was a strategy. Then I showed them the files. Rachel examined the screenshots one by one. She enlarged dates, read messages, and made notes. Vanessa leaned closer when the conversations mentioned Andrew's firm or partnership. The more they saw, the quieter they became. Finally, Rachel removed her glasses and looked at me. "This is significant," she said. Vanessa gave a humorless laugh. "Significant is polite." Rachel ignored her. The affair itself may or may not affect the legal outcome in the way people imagine, but the financial evidence matters. If marital income funded a separate household without your knowledge, we may be looking at dissipation of marital assets. We need statements, tax returns, credit card records, loan documents, retirement accounts, and anything connected to the house. "I can get most of it," I said. Andrew had always considered financial administration beneath him. I paid bills, organized tax documents, and tracked our savings goals. He made more money, but I understood our household accounts better. Or I had believed I did. "Do not access anything illegally," Rachel warned. "Do not guess passwords. Use records you are authorized to view. Save copies outside the home." I nodded. "And the phone?" "Leave it where it is," she said. "You have enough to justify formal discovery. If he realizes you found it, he may destroy evidence or move funds." Vanessa tapped one screenshot. "This message is about partnership timing." Andrew had written to Lola that he could not risk a public divorce until the firm's executive committee voted. He said certain senior partners valued discretion and viewed family law attorneys as representatives of the firm's judgment. "Is that true?" I asked. Vanessa chose her words carefully. "The firm does not have a morality clause for ordinary marital problems. Half our clients are divorcing, and several partners are divorced. But deception involving clients, misuse of firm time, undisclosed conflicts, or conduct that damages trust can become a professional issue. More importantly, Andrew has spent months presenting himself as stable, reliable, and ready for leadership. This will raise questions." "I don't want to invent consequences," I said. "I only want the truth to stop protecting him." Rachel studied me. "That is an important distinction. We will not threaten his job. We will not contact the firm to punish him. We will pursue your legal rights. What his own evidence does to his professional reputation is his responsibility." For the first time that evening, anger pushed through the grief. "He used me as part of that reputation." "Yes," Vanessa said, "he did." The coffee shop had nearly emptied. A barista wiped tables around us. Outside, traffic moved over wet pavement, headlights stretching across the windows. Rachel asked detailed questions. "How long had we been married?" 5 years. "Did we have a prenuptial agreement?" "No." "Children together?" "No." "Whose name was on the house?" "Both." "Any history of violence?" "No." "Any reason I felt physically unsafe?" I hesitated. Andrew had never hit me. He rarely shouted. His power came from language. He could turn a conversation until I questioned my own memory. He could make reasonable requests sound selfish and selfish decisions sound inevitable. "Not physically," I said, "but he is very good at controlling the story." Rachel wrote that down. "Then we communicate strategically. You do not argue, you document. You do not announce plans. You follow normal routines until we are ready to file." "His birthday dinner is tomorrow." Vanessa looked at me, as though I had said I planned to walk into traffic. "Cancel it." Rachel shook her head slowly. "Not necessarily. Who is attending?" I listed the guests. Andrew's parents, Nora and Paul, David and Megan, Mark and his girlfriend, Chris, 2 other couples, a few friends from my side. "Many of the people who knew," Rachel said. "Yes." "Can you handle being in the room with them?" I thought about Susan sitting at my table, praising my cooking after she had held Andrew's son. I thought about David laughing with my husband while lending him alibis. "I don't know," I admitted. "You do not have to," Rachel said. "But if you proceed, observe. Keep your phone with you. Do not provoke anything dangerous. And if Andrew gives you a false explanation for tonight, document it." Vanessa closed my laptop. "Where is he now?" "He says he's helping David with his car." She glanced at the time. It was almost 11. Andrew left the office at 5:40. The confirmation still hurt. I had known he was lying. Hearing it from someone else made the lie solid. Rachel slid a representation agreement toward me. She explained the retainer, confidentiality, and next steps. I signed. My hand was steadier than I expected. When the meeting ended, Vanessa walked me to my car. "He talks about you," she said. I stopped. "At work. Often, your career, your house, your cooking. He keeps a photograph from your wedding on his desk." A bitter laugh escaped me. "Of course he does." "I thought he admired you," she said. "Maybe he does in his way, but admiration without honesty is just another form of possession." I looked at her. "Why does he hate you?" Vanessa's mouth curved without humor. "Because I notice when numbers and stories do not match." For the first time that day, I almost smiled. "So do I." At home, the house was dark. Andrew returned at 2:14 in the morning. I was in bed with the lights off, fully awake. He moved quietly, but not quietly enough. I heard the front door, the alarm, the refrigerator, and finally his footsteps on the stairs. When he entered the bedroom, I turned on the lamp. He froze. "You're awake. What happened with David?" He recovered quickly. "The car wouldn't start. We had to check the battery, then wait for someone with cables. For 5 hours. We talked. He has some things going on." "What things?" Andrew pulled off his sweater. "It's private, Liv. He asked me not to say." The lie was elegant. It used friendship to block further questions. "Of course," I said. I reached for my phone and typed a note while he was in the bathroom. Friday, 2:14 a.m. Andrew claimed he was with David dealing with car trouble. Said David has private problems. Then I emailed the note to Rachel. Andrew came to bed smelling faintly of baby lotion. He put an arm around my waist. I lay rigid in the darkness while he fell asleep beside me. I had never felt more alone. Chapter 5. Saturday morning began with Andrew acting like a man who had nothing to hide. He made coffee, he kissed my shoulder, he asked what he could do to help. I gave him small tasks because refusing would have looked strange. "Move the extra chairs into the dining room," I said. He carried in the same chairs I had been reaching for when I found the phone. Watching him cross the room with them felt unreal. By 10, I had prepared most of the food. By noon, flowers were arranged in low glass vases, the table was set, and the cake was cooling. Andrew spent 20 minutes pretending to help before looking at his phone and frowning. "I need to go into the office for a couple of hours." I kept piping frosting. "Today." "A client issue. I tried to avoid it." "How long will you be?" 2 hours, maybe 3. I'll be back before anyone arrives." "All right." He kissed my temple and left. 5 minutes later, I texted him. "How long do you think you'll be at the office? I may need you to pick up ice." His reply came immediately. "Probably 2 hours. I'm already downtown." I took a screenshot and sent it to Rachel. Then I texted Vanessa a single question. "Is Andrew at the office?" Her response arrived 15 minutes later. "No, security log shows he has not entered the building today." I saved that too. The evidence was becoming almost obscene in its simplicity. Andrew lied because lying had always worked. He did not imagine I would verify him. At 4:30, he returned carrying 2 bags of ice and wearing the satisfied expression of someone who believed he had managed 2 households efficiently. "Crisis solved," he said. "I'm glad." Guests began arriving at 6. My friends came first, cheerful and unsuspecting. Then Mark and Chris arrived with expensive bourbon. David and Megan came 10 minutes later. David hugged Andrew with exaggerated warmth, and I wondered whether they had already discussed the previous night's alibi. Megan handed me flowers. "Everything looks beautiful," she said. Her face was open and relaxed. I decided she probably did not know. That realization gave me an idea. I waited until drinks had been poured, and everyone was gathered near the kitchen island. "David," I said lightly, "did you figure out what was wrong with your car?" His expression changed so quickly that I almost missed it. Megan turned toward him. "What car problem?" The room quieted by 1 degree. I looked at her with innocent concern. "Andrew was at your place, until after 2 this morning helping with the car. Megan's eyebrows drew together. No, he wasn't. David made a small choking sound. Andrew set down his glass. Liv, you misunderstood. I turned to him. Did I? I said I was helping David with something, not necessarily at his house. You said his car wouldn't start. David looked at Andrew. Andrew looked at David. Between them passed the silent panic of 2 men discovering that a familiar lie had failed. Megan folded her arms. David, were you with Andrew last night? For a while, he said. Where? We drove around. In the car that would not start, I asked. Chris coughed into his fist to hide what might have been a laugh or a warning. Andrew's jaw tightened. Olivia, can we not do this in front of everyone? I raised one eyebrow. Do what? Ask where my husband was until 2 in the morning. The front doorbell rang before he could answer. His parents had arrived. Susan entered carrying a covered dish and wearing the pearl earrings I had given her for Mother's Day. Richard followed with a bottle of wine. Behind them came Nora and Paul. The moment Nora saw my face, she stopped. Something passed between us. I do not know whether she understood that I knew everything. Maybe it was the way I looked at her. Maybe guilt had trained her to search my expression. Her face drained of color. Olivia, she said carefully. Nora, I'm glad you're here. I hugged Susan because I wanted to know whether I could do it. Her arms closed around me. She smelled like rose perfume and cold air. You have outdone yourself, she said, looking toward the table. Andrew is so lucky. The cruelty of that sentence nearly made me lose control. Instead, I smiled. I'm the lucky one. I have such an honest, loving family. Richard immediately looked away. Susan adjusted the edge of her napkin, though we were not yet seated. Nora made a sharp sound through her nose. For years, I had believed those sounds were aimed at me. Now I saw the truth. Nora was not cold. She was furious. Dinner began awkwardly and then became louder as alcohol softened everyone. My friends talked about work. Mark told a story from college. Megan remained distant from David, who drank too quickly. I moved around the table serving food, filling glasses, and observing. Every familiar gesture had changed meaning. Susan praised the chicken while wearing the expression of a woman at a funeral. Richard asked about my parents in England and could not hold my gaze. Chris complimented the house, perhaps remembering the messages in which Andrew compared it to Lola's apartment. Nora barely ate. Andrew, however, seemed to recover completely. Attention energized him. He told stories, made people laugh, and placed his hand on the back of my chair whenever someone praised the meal. After dessert, Mark called for a speech. Andrew stood. I placed my phone against a vase, with the camera running. He thanked everyone for coming. He joked about getting older. He praised his parents and friends. Then he turned toward me. Most of all, I need to thank Olivia, he said. The room became quiet. People see the career and the cases and assume I did it alone. I didn't. This woman built the life that makes everything else possible. She makes our home a place I want to return to. She believes in me even when I don't believe in myself. My eyes burned. That was the horror of loving a liar. Some of his words were true. I had built that life. I had believed in him. I had created the home he used as evidence of his respectability. I love you, he said. You are the only woman I have ever wanted beside me. Susan lowered her gaze. David drank. Nora looked directly at Andrew with naked disgust. I lifted my glass. Happy birthday, I said. Everyone drank. The camera captured it all. Later, while guests gathered their coats, Nora found me alone in the kitchen. Can I help you clean? She asked. Her voice trembled. Not tonight. She stared at me. Olivia, I need to tell you something. My heart struck my ribs. For 1 second, I considered letting her confess. I wanted someone from that family to choose me openly. But Rachel had told me to wait until we filed. Another time, I said. Nora's eyes filled. I'm sorry. It was barely a whisper. I looked at her and allowed the truth to enter my face for just a moment. I know, I said. She went completely still. Then Andrew entered the kitchen, smiling and carrying empty glasses. "What do you know?" he asked. I turned toward the sink. "That Nora hates cleaning after parties." Andrew laughed. Nora did not. When the last guest left, I went upstairs, locked myself in the bathroom, and sent the birthday video to Rachel. Then I sat on the floor beside the tub and pressed both hands over my mouth while silent sobs tore through me. Downstairs, Andrew hummed as he loaded the dishwasher. He thought the evening had gone well. Chapter 6. On Sunday morning, Andrew slept until 10. I had been awake since 5. I sat at the kitchen table with coffee growing cold beside me and worked through our financial records. For years, Andrew had teased me about my spreadsheets. He called them Olivia's command center and claimed I could not enjoy a vacation without calculating 3 possible budgets. That morning, the habit he mocked became my protection. I downloaded bank statements from accounts carrying my name. I copied tax returns, mortgage records, retirement summaries, insurance policies, and credit card statements. I compared the transfers from the hidden phone with withdrawals from our joint accounts. The pattern emerged slowly. Andrew had not simply spent his personal allowance on Lola. He had constructed an entire parallel household from marital income. Rent, utilities, groceries, a used SUV registered to Lola, private medical bills connected to the pregnancy, furniture, a deposit at a daycare center, thousands of dollars in cash withdrawals that had never appeared in the budget he reviewed with me. He had told me our savings were growing slowly because the house needed repairs and his partnership contributions would soon increase. I had accepted fewer vacations. I had delayed replacing my car. I had moved money from my bonus into our emergency fund. While I was protecting our future, Andrew was financing another one. By noon, Rachel had a secure folder containing everything I could legally access. She called me that afternoon. "The transfers are substantial," she said. "We will need formal discovery to determine the full amount. Do not discuss finances with him." "When can we file?" "Tomorrow, if you're certain." I looked through the kitchen doorway. Andrew was on the sofa watching a football game, one ankle resting over his knee. He looked relaxed, comfortable. He had eaten leftover cake for breakfast and thanked me for a perfect birthday. "I'm certain," I said. The word hurt, but it did not frighten me. Rachel prepared the petition. She recommended that we request exclusive use of the house during the proceedings, temporary financial protections, and a formal accounting of money spent on Lola and Caleb's household. "We are not targeting the child," she said. "His son is innocent, but Andrew cannot use that innocence to erase what he did with marital assets." "I understand." I meant it. Caleb had done nothing wrong. I did not hate him. I could not even hate Lola as cleanly as I wanted to, because Andrew had lied to both of us in different ways. But sympathy did not require surrender. The petition was filed on Wednesday. We arranged for service on Friday at Andrew's office. That choice was not mine alone. Andrew's schedule made the office the most reliable location, and Rachel wanted proof that he had received the documents. Vanessa did not arrange the service, but she quietly confirmed the time of a department meeting so the process server would not miss him. All week, I lived beside Andrew as though we were strangers sharing a stage. He left for work each morning and kissed me goodbye. He texted to ask what I wanted for dinner. He complained about Vanessa. He spoke about our summer plans. On Tuesday night, while I was folding towels in the bedroom, Andrew said the partnership committee valued stability and that perhaps it was finally time for us to start trying for a baby. My hand stopped. "You want a baby now?" "Soon," he said. "A family would be good for us. It would not hurt the partnership decision either, and Mom keeps saying we have waited long enough." My whole body began to shake. He had a 6-month-old son, and he was asking me to give him another child because fatherhood would improve his image at work. His mother had already held Caleb in her arms, yet she had complained that I had failed to give the family a grandchild. The audacity of both of them was so complete that for a moment I could not speak. "You were the one who kept asking me to wait," I finally said. "I know, the timing was not right before." But it is now, because you might make partner. He smiled, relieved that I seemed to understand. That is part of it. Mom is right too. We cannot put it off forever. I folded the towel into a perfect rectangle and said, "Then I suppose we should wait for the vote." He looked pleased by what he mistook for obedience. That night, he fell asleep with one hand on my hip while I stared at the ceiling until sunrise. By Thursday, grief had changed shape. At first, it had been sharp and chaotic. Then it became heavy, settling into my chest and limbs. I moved through work, answered emails, and attended meetings while feeling as though I were carrying an invisible body. Sometimes, I missed him even while he stood in front of me. That was the most humiliating part. I missed the man I thought he was. I missed our jokes. I missed the way he reached for my hand in crowds. I missed waking on Sunday mornings with nowhere to be. My mind knew those memories existed beside lies, but my body still responded to familiarity. Love did not disappear when evidence arrived. It became contaminated. On Thursday evening, Nora texted me, "Can we talk?" I stared at the message for several minutes before answering. "After tomorrow." She replied almost immediately. "You know." It was not a question. "Yes." 3 dots appeared, vanished, and returned. "I am so sorry. I should have told you." I closed my eyes. "You tried to make him tell me." It wasn't enough. No, it was not enough. But she was the only person who had tried at all. I wrote, "We'll talk soon." Friday morning, Andrew dressed carefully for the office. He chose a charcoal suit and asked whether the blue tie or burgundy one looked more authoritative. I selected the burgundy. He smiled at himself in the mirror. "Big day," he said. "The executive committee is reviewing the partnership recommendations. Then you should look your best." He turned and kissed my forehead. "You always know what I need." At 9:37, he left the house. At 11:12, Rachel texted me, "He has been SCRVD." I sat alone in a conference room at work and stared at those 4 words. My hands began to shake. Not from regret, from the force of finally stepping out of the lie. Chapter 7. Andrew called 11 times in the first 20 minutes. Then the messages began. "What is this? Call me now. Olivier, this is insane. You filed for divorce without speaking to me. Who is your lawyer? Do not do anything else until we talk." His language changed as panic replaced authority. "Please answer. I love you. Whatever you think happened, I can't explain." Rachel had told me not to engage, so I placed my phone face down and returned to a meeting about customer retention. It was almost absurd. A chart showed a declining conversion rate while my marriage detonated silently beside my notebook. At noon, Vanessa sent a brief message. "The partners know he was SCRVD. He left the meeting." I did not celebrate. I had imagined satisfaction, perhaps even triumph. Instead, I felt hollow. Andrew's public humiliation could not restore the years he had stolen from me. At 1:15, reception called. "Olivia, your husband is here. He says it is urgent." I looked through the glass wall of my office. My coworkers were at their desks. My manager was speaking with a client. Everything remained normal, which made Andrew's presence downstairs feel even more invasive. "Tell security I will meet him in the lobby," I said. I took the elevator down, with my heart pounding. Andrew stood near the security desk, still wearing the burgundy tie. His face was pale, his hair disordered, and the folder containing the divorce papers was crushed in one hand. For the first time since I had known him, he looked unprepared. "You filed for divorce," he said as soon as he saw me. "Yes." "Why?" The question stunned me. Not because he did not know the answer, because he believed pretending not to know might still control the conversation. "You should leave the house," I said. His eyes widened. "What are you talking about?" "I want you to move out while this is pending." "That is my house too." "You already have another home." The color vanished from his face. I watched recognition enter his eyes. Not guilt, calculation. He glanced toward the security guard, then lowered his voice. Olivia, listen to me. Whatever someone told you. No one told me. Then what do you think you know? I almost laughed. Even now, he wanted me to reveal my evidence before deciding which lie to use. I know about Lola. I know about Caleb. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. I know about the apartment, I continued. I know your parents have met your son. I know your friends covered for you. I know this has been going on for 3 years. Liv. Do not call me that. The words came out sharper than I intended. He took a step toward me. Security immediately moved closer. We need privacy, Andrew said. No, you need to leave. You cannot blindside me at work and refuse to discuss it. You built a second family while sleeping beside me. Do not talk to me about being blindsided. His face tightened. For one dangerous second, I saw anger overpower fear. Who is representing you? My attorney will contact yours. Olivia, I am an attorney. You are making choices you do not understand. That sentence steadied me. There he was, the real Andrew, not the frightened husband, the man who believed expertise gave him ownership of reality. I understand that you lied to me for 3 years, I said. I understand that you used marital money to support another household, and I understand that this conversation is over. I turned toward the elevators. He called after me. I love you. I stopped but did not turn around. You loved what I did for your life, I said. That is not the same thing. The elevator doors closed between us. Upstairs, I walked into the restroom and locked myself in a stall. My whole body shook so violently that my teeth clicked together. I had remained calm in front of him. Now the fear arrived. Not fear that he would hurt me. Fear of what came next. The marriage had been terrible in ways I did not know, but it had also been familiar. Leaving meant entering a future with no shape. There would be lawyers, financial disclosures, a house divided, friends lost, and questions from people who had believed we were happy. I pressed my palm against my sternum and breathed until the shaking slowed. Then I returned to my desk. Andrew stayed in the lobby for another 15 minutes. Security refused to let him follow me upstairs. He called until my phone battery dropped below 20%. I did not answer. That evening, I drove home knowing he would probably be there. He was. His car sat in the driveway, and every light in the house was on. I entered through the front door. Andrew stood in the living room with his jacket off and his tie hanging loose around his neck. You finally came home, he said. I live here. So do I. For now. His expression hardened. I walked past him into the kitchen, took leftover chicken from the refrigerator, and placed one portion in the microwave. Andrew watched me. Are you seriously going to eat? I looked at him. Yes. My entire life is falling apart, and you're heating dinner. The microwave hummed between us. Your life has been divided between 2 homes for years. Mine fell apart last Friday. He stared at the single plate. You didn't make anything for me. The question was so childish, so perfectly Andrew, that a laugh escaped me. Maybe you should visit your son. Lola might have dinner. His face changed. This is not what you think. I carried my plate to the table. Then tell me what it is. And Andrew began to lie. Again. Chapter 8. The Elephantess Pregnancy. Andrew sat across from me and constructed his defense. He said Lola had been a mistake. He said it happened one night when I was visiting my parents in England. He said he had gone out drinking with friends, met her at a bar, and made the worst decision of his life. She got pregnant, he said. I didn't know what to do. I chewed slowly and watched him. So you rented her an apartment. I had a responsibility to the baby. You bought furniture. For the baby. You spent nights there. Caleb is my son. You took her to Florida. He blinked. That was the first detail that told him I had evidence. It was not a vacation, he said quickly. She was having a difficult pregnancy. Caleb was not conceived 3 years ago. He leaned forward. I met her before that night. I may have spoken to her a few times, but nothing happened until. Andrew, the affair began 3 years ago. Your son is 6 months old. A pregnancy lasts about 9 months. Unless Lola is an elephant, your timeline has a problem. For a moment, he had no answer. Then he changed strategies. She manipulated me. I set down my fork. Of course she did. You don't know her. She threatened to expose everything. She said she would come to you, call the firm, ruin my chance at partnership. I was trying to contain the situation. For 3 years. I was protecting us. The sentence made me feel physically ill. You were protecting our marriage by maintaining another family. I never planned to leave you. He said it as though it should comfort me. I stared at the man I had married. That makes it worse. How? Because it means there was no point at which you lost control. You designed this. You wanted me here maintaining the house and your image while Lola gave you excitement and a son. You wanted both lives. I wanted you. You wanted my labor, my salary, my loyalty, my respectability. He pushed back from the table. That is unfair. Unfair. My voice rose for the first time. You stood in our bedroom and told me your mother was right, that we had waited long enough. She had already held your baby by then. You both knew you were asking me to build a family image around a lie. Andrew went still. You saw messages with my parents. I saw everything. Fear entered his face again. Where? I smiled without warmth. You should know better than to ask an opposing party to reveal her discovery process. He stared at me. The language was his. The restraint was Rachel's. For once, he could not tell how much I knew or what would happen next. Olivia, please, he said, softening his voice. I know this looks unforgivable, but marriages survive affairs. We can go to therapy. I will end things with Lola. I will arrange support for Caleb through attorneys. You never have to see her. And your son. He hesitated. I will see him on a schedule. So I am supposed to spend the rest of my life organizing our marriage around the child you had with another woman while lying to me. He is innocent. Yes, he is. Stop using his innocence as a weapon against me. Andrew rubbed both hands over his face. I made mistakes. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. You maintained 2 households. I love you. You keep saying that, as if the word can survive anything. He moved his chair closer. Tell me there is still a chance. I thought of Rachel's warning not to reveal strategy. I thought of the financial records we still needed. I thought of how dangerous Andrew could become if he believed the marriage was truly over before temporary orders were in place. So I gave him the smallest possible opening. I will think about what you said. Relief moved across his face. He believed he had reached me. That's all I ask. It was not all he asked. Over the next hour, he apologized, explained, minimized, blamed, and promised. He moved between shame and irritation so smoothly that I began to see the structure of his persuasion. When tears did not work, he used logic. When logic failed, he used our memories. When memories failed, he mentioned the house, our friends, our future children, and the pain a divorce would cause our parents. He never once asked what discovering the truth had done to me. At 11, I stood. Where are you going? To sleep. He followed me upstairs. I took a suitcase from the closet and began moving my clothes into the guest room. You said you would think about it. I can think in another room. This is dramatic. I stopped with a stack of sweaters in my arms. Your girlfriend has a nursery for your son. I am moving 20 feet down the hallway. I don't think I am the dramatic person in this marriage. He had no answer. I closed the guest room door and locked it. For the first time in 5 years, I slept alone under our roof. I expected to feel abandoned. Instead, beneath the grief, I felt the faint beginning of peace. Chapter 9. The sister I never knew. Nora came to see me the next morning. Andrew had left early, claiming he needed to speak with an attorney. I assumed he was finally telling someone enough truth to receive useful advice. Nora stood on the porch holding 2 coffees and looking as though she had not slept. He called Mom, she said when I let her in. Everyone knows you filed. Good. She followed me into the kitchen, but did not sit until I did. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then Nora began to cry. It startled me. She had always seemed so controlled, almost severe. Now her shoulders shook while she gripped the coffee cup with both hands. "I am sorry," she said. "I am so deeply sorry." I looked down at the table. "How long have you known?" "A year and a half, since the pregnancy. Andrew told Mom and Dad first because Lola wanted help with medical bills. They made me promise not to tell you until he had a plan. And he never had one. His plan was to keep delaying." Nora wiped her face. "I told him I would tell you. He said if I did, Mom and Dad would say I destroyed the family. He said Lola would disappear with the baby and they would never forgive me. Paul told me that was manipulation, but I was afraid." Anger rose, but it did not land entirely on her. "You sat with me at Christmas." "I know. You watched your mother ask me when Andrew and I were having children." Nora covered her mouth. "I left early because I thought I was going to scream. You thought I hated you." "Yes. I hated myself." Silence stretched between us. I wanted to punish her. Part of me wanted to describe every second in the garage and make her feel the full weight of what her silence had cost. But she already knew. "Why didn't Paul tell me?" I asked. "He wanted to." I stopped him. "I thought Andrew would confess if I gave him one more deadline. Then Caleb was born and everything got worse." She reached into her bag and placed a flash drive on the table. "These are screenshots of my conversations with Andrew and my parents. Rachel may be able to use them. I also wrote down the dates of the times I know Mom and Dad visited Lola." I stared at the drive. "Does Andrew know you have this?" "No." "Why are you giving it to me?" Nora looked directly at me. "Because I failed you once. I will not do it again." My eyes filled. I did not forgive her completely that morning. Forgiveness is not a door that opens because someone says the correct words, but I believed her regret. That mattered. We spoke for 2 hours. She told me Andrew had introduced Lola to their parents as the mother of his child, not as a woman he loved. She said Susan immediately attached herself to the baby and began treating the affair as an unfortunate detail surrounding a blessing. Richard focused on damage control. Andrew promised everyone he would resolve the marriage situation after making partner. Did Lola know he was still living with me? Nora hesitated. Yes, she knew, but he told her your marriage was over emotionally and that you had agreed to wait until the partnership decision before filing. I laughed bitterly. So he told both of us to wait for the same vote. Yes. Did she believe him? At first, I don't know what she believes now. That afternoon, Susan called. I let it go to voicemail. Her message began with tears. Olivia, please do not make any permanent decisions while you are angry. Andrew has done something terrible, but Caleb is innocent, and families can survive complicated situations. We love you like a daughter. I replayed that final sentence twice. Then I deleted the message. Richard sent a shorter one, asking me to keep the matter private for Andrew's professional sake. I forwarded both to Rachel. Andrew returned after dark. He looked exhausted and angry. You met with Nora. Yes. She has always wanted to turn you against me. I almost admired the speed with which he rewrote their relationship. She spent 18 months trying to make you tell me the truth. She is jealous. Of what? Your 2 mortgages. The apartment is rented. That is your response. He walked away, then turned back. My attorney says you are trying to claim I dissipated marital assets. Speak to Rachel. You know the money went to my son. Some of it did. Some went to vacations, jewelry, restaurants, and a car for Lola. His face tightened. You have no right to judge how I supported my child. I have every right to know how you spent our money. He stared at me for a long moment. Then he said the thing that finally killed the last fragile piece of love I still carried. You never needed the money. I understood him completely then. Because I was competent, he believed I could absorb any injury. Because I earned well, he believed stealing from our future did not count. Because I kept the house warm and the bills paid, he believed I required less care than the people who demanded it. That is why you chose me, I said quietly. You thought I would survive whatever you did. He opened his mouth. I walked into the guest room and closed the door. This time, I did not cry. Chapter 10. What he lost. The legal process lasted 8 months. There was nothing cinematic about most of it. There were emails, disclosures, conferences, appraisals, account statements, and long conversations about numbers that represented years of my life. Andrew hired an experienced attorney from another firm. At first, he fought everything. He denied that the money spent on Lola's household was excessive. He argued that many transfers were gifts to support his child. He claimed some cash withdrawals had been used for ordinary expenses. Then formal discovery began. Records appeared. The apartment lease carried Andrew's personal email address. The SUV down payment came from our joint savings. Hotel bills matched dates he had claimed to be traveling for work. The nursery furniture had been purchased with a credit card I paid every month. A separate account, opened 2 years earlier, contained regular transfers from his salary. The total was larger than I had imagined. Rachel did not need to bury him. His own records did the work. The partnership vote was postponed and then quietly resolved without him. Andrew remained at the firm for several months, but important clients were reassigned. He eventually resigned and joined a smaller practice. Vanessa made partner. She never gloated. The only message she sent me said, "I hope you are taking care of yourself." The house became the central battle. Andrew refused to leave until temporary orders were entered. For 6 weeks, we lived on separate floors and communicated mostly through attorneys. He continued to alternate between apology and anger. Some days, he left flowers outside the guest room door. Other days, he accused me of destroying his career. Once he stood in the hallway and said, "You could stop all of this." I looked at him through the half-open door. "No, I could only stop holding you accountable." Eventually, the court granted me temporary exclusive use of the house, and Andrew moved into Lola's apartment. That arrangement lasted less than 2 months. I learned through Nora that living together did not create the romantic future they had imagined. Lola had expected Andrew to arrive as a successful partner ready to build a public life with her. Instead, he arrived angry, professionally diminished, and obsessed with the marriage he had lost. I took no pleasure in that. By then, I understood that revenge could become another way of remaining attached. I wanted freedom, not updates. Susan continued to call until Rachel asked Andrew's attorney to stop family members from pressuring me. Her final voicemail said I was punishing everyone for one man's mistake. I saved it because it captured the entire family's logic. One man's mistake. 3 years of choices. Hundreds of lies. Thousands of dollars. A child born into secrecy. A wife treated as a useful object. But in Susan's version, the true damage began when I refused to absorb it quietly. David and Megan separated during my divorce. Megan called me once. She apologized for what David had done and said she had discovered he had been lying to her too, though not about another family. She asked why I had questioned the car story at the party. Because I wanted one lie to fail in public, I told her. I'm glad it did, she said. Nora and I became something like sisters, though trust returned slowly. She testified truthfully when needed. She did not ask me to forgive her parents. She did not defend Andrew. My own parents flew from England and stayed with me for 3 weeks. My mother cried when she saw the guest room where I had been sleeping. My father replaced a broken lock on the back gate, even though it had nothing to do with the divorce. It was simply something he could fix. For a while, I did not know who I was outside the marriage. I had organized so much of my life around creating stability. I had believed love was proven through reliability, patience, and the willingness to carry more when the other person struggled. Therapy taught me that those qualities were not the problem. The problem was offering them without requiring honesty in return. The final settlement gave me credit for a substantial portion of the marital funds Andrew had diverted. The house was sold because neither of us wanted or could reasonably keep it under the new circumstances. I retained my retirement account, received an equitable share of the remaining assets, and walked away without paying for the fantasy he had built behind my back. The day we signed the final documents, Andrew asked to speak with me alone outside Rachel's office. He looked older than 35. "Is this really what you want?" he asked. "Yes. After everything we had." I studied his face. For months, I had imagined this conversation. I had rehearsed speeches in the shower and composed devastating answers while driving. In the end, I did not need them. "What we had depended on me not knowing what you were doing," I said. "Once I knew, it no longer existed." He looked toward the street. "I lost everything." "No," I said. "You made choices. The consequences are not something I did to you." His eyes filled. A year earlier, his tears would have broken me. That day, I felt sadness for the life we had wasted, but I did not confuse sadness with a reason to return. I walked away before he could ask me to save him again. Epilogue. The life that was mine. 1 year after the birthday party, I lived in a sunlit apartment overlooking a park. It was smaller than the house in Oak Park. The dining table seated 6 instead of 14. The kitchen had less counter space, and the bedroom closet required discipline. I loved every inch of it. Nothing in that apartment had been chosen to impress a partner, reassure a family, or support someone else's image. The blue chair by the window was there because I liked it. The framed prints in the hallway were mine. On Sunday mornings, I drank coffee in silence without wondering where my husband had been the night before. My career grew after the divorce. I accepted a director position I had once hesitated to pursue because it required occasional travel. The first time I boarded a plane for work, I felt guilty for leaving no dinner prepared at home. Then I remembered there was no one waiting to measure my value by what I provided. Nora visited often. Our relationship was not simple, but it was honest. She had learned that silence could protect the person causing harm rather than the people she loved. I had learned that someone could fail me and still choose to do better. Andrew saw Caleb regularly and paid formal child support. That was as it should be. His son deserved a father who showed up openly, not in stolen hours. I did not follow Andrew's romantic life. I heard that he and Lola separated, reconciled, and separated again. None of it belonged to me. For months, people asked whether I regretted not confronting him immediately in the garage. I did not. Waiting was not weakness. Cooking his birthday dinner, after discovering the truth, was not surrender. Smiling while he praised me was not proof that he had fooled me. It was the moment I stopped reacting to the life he had designed and began protecting the life I would build after him. Sometimes, I still remembered the hidden phone hitting the concrete floor. I remembered the photograph of Andrew holding Caleb and the terrible softness in his face. I remembered the message that said, "Come home soon." For a long time, those words haunted me because they proved he had called another place home. Eventually, their meaning changed. Home was never the house Andrew and I owned. It was never the marriage certificate, the birthday table, or the performance of being the perfect couple. Home was the place where I no longer had to doubt my own reality. The place where love did not require blindness. The place I built after I stopped asking why I had not been enough for a man who had demanded 2 lives and deserved neither. I used to believe opening that phone destroyed my marriage. It did not. The marriage had already been destroyed in secret. Opening the phone only opened the door. And I finally walked through it.